Okay, so today is the first Monday in August, August 7th, which is the second week in August. Hence, we are 3 weeks from our last meeting. And people who should be outdoors enjoying a hot dog, the sunshine, fresh air, or whatever are instead indoors hanging out on Zoom. We don't have an official agenda, but I will point out that 4 out of a potential 5 in-person members of the Albuquerque user group are all here tonight. So any votes taken are null and void.
We have a quorum.
Anything except perhaps nominating Adam as president of the user group, whatever that is worth.
Run.
My vote is twice as powerful then, right?
I'm sorry?
Oh, never mind.
Yeah. So, let's just have a good time and chat about some stuff. Adam helpfully made up a series of notes based on a variety of things. Unfortunately, Eduardo Fuentes, he can't join us tonight, and so he can't talk to us about bat code, which is a implementation of Core War, but we could talk about it anyway in his absence. And then anything else. So I am going to open the floor to anybody who wants to chat about anything before I start asking about topics. Actually, Paul had something. Paul, do you have that image ready?
Yes, I do.
Okay,
In fact, let me move my head and you can see it. There you go.
168.
Nice. Let me spotlight that, Paul.
Yeah, that looks familiar.
So
somewhere I've seen, well, except for the little dead cockroach in the middle there.
Right. Well, Paul was saying that this is the mod that you did when you wanted to replace your. Looks like both the ROM chips are replaced.
Yeah,
Paul?
both ROM chips were replaced.
Okay. Yeah, both ROM chips are replaced with EPROMs, but what model EPROMs are they, Paul? Because the one with the white label should be a 16K.
I forgot.
32s, 2764s.
But they would have more pins than. I love the way you're dipping out, Paul. They would have more pins than the standard ROM.
Oh, there we go.
Oh my God.
Well, the one without the label is a 28 pin.
Yeah. It looks like the other one is. I wonder if what. Okay.
And the cockroach is I think an address line decoder chip or something.
Like a 138 or something, maybe.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's been a long time since I was on a machine at this level.
Well, now you're below it. Or there you're back.
I could always open the case on Willie's computer and check.
Hey.
Well, I noticed you're plugged into most of the W lines there, right? The W1, W2, W3, W4, which is some of the addressing there, right? Or maybe it's a chip selects. I can't remember right off the top of my head, but I see wires going into those behind your head.
Well, like I said, it's been some time.
Yeah. In fact, I mean, the chip is right there on top of those 4 jumpers.
Yeah.
Which only 2 of them are supposed to be used at a time, right? But anyway.
And I don't remember the mods that Willie did on his.
Willie, did you modify yours as well?
Yeah, well, yeah, I've done several on mine, but I don't remember what this one is, to be honest with you guys.
I got one when you fire it up says copyright Willie Jones.
That's very common. I do that a lot.
I've had this one for years.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
If you want it back.
That's right. You guys are somewhat close to each other, right?
Cross town completely. Unless he's moved. I have not.
No, I live out in Paragon now, so I've moved probably.
Oh, you went even. Oh, Paragon's down 67.
Yeah. You see, you ain't in the same house, are you?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Yeah, I know where you're at.
Oh, did you guys used to visit with each other back in the day?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we used to hang out a lot. We're both members of ISTUG and did a lot of things together. It was a lot of fun.
Well, and you guys wrote the BBS for
Yep.
the user group.
Yeah, Paul did all the coding for that, and we did all kinds of basic stuff and upgrades, and then we modified it for the John Oliger disk system, and about 4 or 5 versions of that out there at one time. I've still got a couple of them here.
Hey, since you guys ran a bulletin board
There you go.
system, let me ask you a question. I got an email from somebody who ran a bulletin board system at the time, and he mentioned that there was when Pete Fisher, I think, was putting together his book about using a modem with the 2068, that there was some sort of effort to pass an RLE graphic from one bulletin board system, sysop to another, and each one would touch it up or add something to it in a certain way until it finally made its way back, I think, to Pete. Does that ring a bell for either of you guys?
Yes, and there's also a color version of it.
That's craziness.
I have a copy. It was
So-
courtesy of Pete because Willie and I did a lot.
So what was the story there with the graphic?
8-bit.
Well, I'm a little confused. So this was like a round robin. It went from one BBS moderator to another until it was considered done? Is
That was the impression I got.
Basically, I believe that's the case. Although I don't think they all participated.
all two of you?
Well, no, there's there's Paul and there's this other person, Chris. But what did you do to the image before you passed it to the next person, Paul?
I cannot remember.
Okay. I mean, it's been a few years.
I might have to dig it out of wherever repository it's currently hiding, because I've been shuffling stuff, and I'm getting ready to sell most of the 1000 material to a person that wants to introduce their child to computers. So there's a lot of tapes and a lot of hardware that I can bundle up and send off the post. Several of the banana boxes worth.
Introduce or traumatize?
Oh, maybe both.
Introduce. There's no trauma here.
Well, I am going to include a recased with a standard keyboard 1000
Cool.
that has augmented for sufficient power, and extra RAM is already in it.
Yeah.
And it also has a software hardware reset added because there
Oh.
were too many keys on the remote keyboard.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
Will you still have these a version of the TS1000 with the standard Timex keyboard? I mean,
Oh,
The
I
young-
still have that.
is that going to go? Because the youngsters really need to understand
What a keyboard
the
is.
pain. Yeah, exactly.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm including one of those with it.
Okay.
And an extra keyboard overlay just in case, the membrane.
You can just tell it, you can just tell them it's a touch keyboard, right?
Yeah.
Oh
Right.
yeah.
No, it is if you push hard enough.
Just no pinch to zoom.
Well, you have to consider it a resistive touch screen, back in the day. Not these capacitive ones that, you barely have to touch them. The resistive ones you actually had to kind of press, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Well, and then
See,
you'll be
now
able
that
to-
would be a fun project, right? Make an actual LCD touchscreen and mount it to the TS1000 that is the image of the keyboard and it responds.
Yeah, that would be.
Now I would
Why
say
why
that.
can't we just make an iPad, right? An entire graphic on an iPad be the TS1000.
There you
Well, I
go.
have the emulator on my iPad that it actually does that. The
That,
emulator.
that almost sounds like a summer of code challenge kind of thing.
Yep.
Isn't there a ZX181 emulator for the iPhone?
Yeah, I have it. I can go get it if you want me to.
Yeah, me
show it to
too.
you.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah. All right. I'll
Let
go
me
get
let me
it.
spot. Hang on. Hold it up for a sec, Ryan.
I gotta go get it first. So give me a second. Oh, you have it right. There you
Yeah.
are.
Oh, wait a minute. What's
Wow.
that one, Ryan? Oh, is that the ZX81 in 1000 mode?
Yeah, it's
Oh, look at
this
he's got it on his home
simulator.
screen.
Wow.
Yeah, that's
That
probably
is
the
Just,
same
cool.
one
just,
I have. I
just in
guess.
case you need to really play some 3D Monster Maze.
It's got
I've got
it's got
Android
some
as
different
well.
keyboard settings.
It can
You can
only be
have-
valid if you get the black and white bars with audio input.
Yeah.
I could
not-
replicate that on the 2068.
The
Mhm.
phone.
I did that for a game. Actually replicated that.
The bars.
Yeah, for a game.
Oh, that's funny.
The real thing that the young folks will get to learn off of a ZX81 or a TS1000 is, you get 3/4 of the way of typing in your program out of Sync magazine, and then your cat walks into the bedroom and rubs up against the wall, and your wall wart falls out.
That, wow, that's hardcore.
Especially when you were trying to do pokes. Poke this, poke this.
Oh,
That's when you got to
yes.
poke your cat. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Mine
the
is
date-
trying real hard to get poked right now. It's rolling all over the bed next to the computer.
Yeah,
Hey.
the days of the 1000 crashes, those are
Mhm.
epic. No matter
Yes.
how it happened, ram pack wobble, or like you said, the power thing falling out of the
Oh yeah,
outlet.
Rampack wobble.
Yeah.
We used to have to take a little strip of Velcro or something and put it on the back so that when you shoved the Rampack in, the Velcro would grab it enough that hopefully there wasn't that much wobble.
That was
Oh.
one. What I used to do is I used to actually go in with a little bitty jeweler screwdriver and pull the little the metal fingers down so they were closer together. So when you plugged it in,
Tighter.
it was even a tighter fit. Yeah.
Oh my god. Throw a challenge down and a true geek will respond with the answer. Bravo, Ryan, bravo.
So is it loading something there, Ryan? Is that what's happening?
Yeah, when you load a game, it has some built in. You can pick the slow load.
Oh dear. I was gonna say, is it like real time? It is. All
Wow.
Yeah, it must be.
right, so we'll check back with you in 5 minutes.
Okay.
Make sure your volume is set right.
The real
That's all-
way to
And
get
you
rid
don't
of,
twist the audio plug and introduce some static in there.
the real way to get rid of Rampack wobble was, of course, duct tape.
Of which what kind of?
Duct tape.
Oh yeah,
Duct
yeah,
tape.
yeah.
Just take the machine, take the RAM, duct tape them both down to a little board, good to go. As
No,
someone said,
that-
secret handyman's secret weapon.
Uh-huh.
That's right. You can't fix it, duct it.
I
That's what
think
we
that's
call
Greg Green's
in aviation, we call duct tape 500-mile-an-hour tape.
Mhm.
It won't come off unless you're going more than 500 mile an hour. So duct tape that Cessna 172, you're good.
Carl, I have a
Speaking-
question for you real quick. When was the last time you saw John? Because you weren't in on the meeting. Did you guys end up talking?
No,
No.
no, things, as you know, have been kind of rough,
Mhm.
but so yeah, we haven't met up or anything. So
So is this the first time you've seen each other in like 30 years?
Something like that.
yeah,
Wow.
that's true. I don't exactly recognize him, to be honest.
Yeah, I lost a little of it. I get it.
But yeah, I know. Well, gosh, that's a long time ago, man. That's
I have vague memories of your house there off of just north of Montgomery on Wantabeau.
yeah. Well, my folks' house is still there.
Yep.
Well, they passed away, so it's my house now. But yeah, it's still there. But yeah, I don't know where you used to live. We all kind of were up in the heights there,
Yeah.
all of us, right? And yeah. But yeah, I've got that paperwork. Did I send that to you? I don't know if I did.
No,
The scans of your when you went and did all the ROM calls. That was a that was a cool. I don't know what we were trying to do with that or what you were trying to do with that. I think we were trying to convert, British software, right? Wasn't that
Right.
the primary purpose of that, to see if we could copy the ROM call or align the ROM calls to where they're supposed to go and get that other software to work?
I came across a huge ton of stuff at my dad's house because I've been starting to clean it out, and I need to. It's just all in boxes. I got to start pulling through it. But I found old graph paper, schematics and stuff of circuits that I drew for the ZX80 or the ZX81 or VIC20 and a bunch of other things. So, and I've got a Sinclair image as my backdrop today. I don't know if anybody can tell what it is.
Looks like
Well,
Yeah, I was going to
one of
ask
those-
about that because it's kind of a strange. I mean, it's
Is it like a 128 or something? Or
1500?
No, it's a QL motherboard.
oh, well,
Oh.
see, that's why we don't know.
I knew that, but I wasn't gonna say anything because I messed with those a lot.
yeah. I
We
There's
never
only
repaired-
one other guy in Albuquerque I knew that had a QL. There was me, and then there's this other guy that was in some apartment over there just east of Louisiana on Montgomery in an
Al
apartment
Fang?
complex. Pardon?
Al Fang? Or
No, he was
Fang?
in Northeast. I
I
think.
thought it was in Albuquerque.
Yeah, I thought he.
Well, he maybe in a different time frame then.
Yeah, he had just gotten a QL, and I hadn't gotten mine yet, so I went over. I bike rode over to his place and took a look at it. With all the little micro drives and stuff.
Yeah,
I
that
re-
doesn't.
I repaired one where the pins on one of the chips actually corroded off.
Ooh.
Now, this is back in
Wow.
the 80s or this is current times?
No,
90s.
90s. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to do that kind of stuff. You dig the, whatever the plastic or whatever they encapsulate the chip in. You could chip some of that away and get enough metal exposed to hook a wire or something up to it, so you could actually still use it.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. I
Al
remember doing
Fang
that.
was in Albuquerque, Platypus Software.
Yeah, yeah, but
Albuquerque, Mexico.
but Al was a longer term QL user. Like he started out in Toronto, right?
Or did he? Oh, I don't know. I know that many years he was in New Mexico. So
Let's see here. I think he was part of Chicago. He's part of the Chicago area.
What is it with New Mexico, man? Go see Oppenheimer. Oh, never mind. Just a report.
It's all that isolation. They had to have something to do.
I think it's the dry climate. It tends to preserve things.
Whoa,
Oh yeah,
Just
that's
look
for
at
sure.
me.
like old people.
yeah, Adam's really 80. He doesn't want to tell us.
That's right.
It's great. It's bad for static though. It's really
That's the
humid.
little
you don't
downy
get too much
water, a
static.
little down and water mixed in a sprayer gets rid of the static for you, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, they seem to make electronics more tolerant these days than, of course, it was back then.
Yeah, you look sideways at a carpet back in the 80s, and it'd be like static explosion.
Yeah, you didn't discharge yourself, and you picked up a damn CMOS chip, and it was
Boom.
toast.
Yeah, 4000 series chip done.
Yeah,
Mhm,
7400 might survive pretty well.
Yeah.
mhm.
yeah. Those
Mhm.
MOS, because they didn't put all the protection in like they kind of automatically do nowadays. They,
Right.
the protection diodes and all that stuff that it's just part of the design now.
When I was in Ohio, we had problems in the wintertime with the static electricity, but luckily my desktop was metal. So I had this habit of just tapping my finger
Mhm.
on the desk every time I sat down, just to ground myself.
Yeah.
It worked.
Hey, David, Sully. So you were asking me about the Larkin discs. Can you tell me better what you were thinking?
But I saw one of the bulletins that you had posted that among the new things you had Larkin disk images.
Yeah. Yeah. But you were asking if they can be run in an emulator?
Yes.
Not directly because there's no emulator that does the Larkin DOS. But and actually this sort of ties into this question that Adam sent me on Adam sent on the list earlier today, which was the software that's on the disks can be sort of de-Larkinized and run individually in an emulator.
Yeah, well, I know how to do that without any problem. The only thing is I do have a lot of Larkin disks, so I'd like to transfer over to an emulator, and I was wondering what was the process.
Oh, okay. So I used a thing called a grease weasel, which is this little circuit board. And it's got USB on one side, plugs into your Windows computer. And it has a floppy disk, the 34-pin floppy disk connector. And so you can plug in, a standard 34-pin floppy disk to it. And then you have to provide external power depending upon what your whatever your drive takes. But it has a connector for that as well. It's got a little barrel connector, so you can, if you can get a 12-volt 2-amp power supply, it'll run everything. And then there's software that comes that there's a program for the grease weasel that actually does the magic of reading the disks. And then if you don't want to run that, it's command line software. If you don't want to run that, there's a Windows GUI app that'll sit on top of it and run the do the setup for you and run the software for you. And as it turns out, the Larkin disk format, you actually preserved a document that described it. I think it's the Larkin disk utility instructions that had the information that I needed to decode the format. So I ended up writing a Python program that takes that raw data from the disk and turns it into TAP files. And so then from the TAP file, you can then load that into an emulator.
Okay, how easy is it to get this grease weasel?
They are easy as, maybe not as easy as Pi, but they're very easy to get. They have a very active community on Facebook. And I'm trying to remember where I got mine. If you're in Canada, right?
Yes.
Still? I say right. I know you're in Canada.
Hey, are you trying to give me a hard time?
No, I just was like, wait, of course I know you're in Canada. I'm going to put it in the chat here that there's a guy in Canada that sells one of the little doodads. So you don't even have to buy buy and pay cross-border shipping and stuff. So there's a guy in Canada, and it's actually, this is one of the variants in terms of the size. It's $37 for this little board, even $37 Canadian.
Have him send it back as a repaired item.
Yeah, right.
No duty.
And David, if that's too daunting, let me know. And if you want to send me your discs, I'll do the imaging. It takes like a minute per. And since I've got the software written, it takes no time at all to get it converted to TAP files.
This is almost like scanning a 72 RPM record and then using the scanned image of the record and being able to interpolate the valleys and grooves to come back out and recreate the music.
The only thing I'm concerned about is the only the only computer I've got that has what is it, 5.25-inch disk drive is an old job that runs under Windows XP.
Oh, okay. Well, if you want to send me your discs, I can image them and, send them back to you.
Okay. But will the grease weasel work on that machine or?
On the Larkin stuff?
Yeah,
But the grease weasel plugs into the drive directly, so
Yeah.
the drive wasn't connected to the computer, the
Yeah.
PC at all.
Right.
Yeah. So in your case, David, you'd have to take the drive out of the PC
mhm.
and
Or have
connect
a
it directly to the grease weasel.
Well, you
Well,
could leave
have
it
a
in there,
spare-
but you would have
Well,
to
I do
connect the
have a
interface
drive, I
cable
do
to it.
have a, I do have an independent drive and I do have a independent power source.
Okay. Okay. Well, then that would work.
That'll work.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not much more difficult than setting up a Larkin system back in the 80s.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I'll still need your Python program in order to do the transfer to the top file.
Yep. I'll send you that. You're
Okay.
mostly Windows, right?
Yeah, mostly Windows.
Okay. Okay.
So David, does it takes every individual file that's on the disk and makes a different tap file?
Let me double check, but yes, I think that's what I had to do, is spit it out as individual.
So you could get your data, but not necessarily getting your program running, because you might have to rewrite it and put it onto some regular disk that is supported. Is that right?
Well, in terms of tap files, you can it's without individual tap files. You can use TZX tools to combine multiple tap files into one, and that's usually the use case where, like, you have maybe a loader program and the real program and a screen and some machine code. That would be like the extreme example. You can combine all four of those things into one tap file and then load that in an emulator.
Mhm.
So it recreates it. But if you can also
Remember-
combine all the tap files into one if you want, to have that disk experience.
And
Remember, you can just simply-
converting a Larkin is not all that much of a problem. All you have to do, it's going to be mostly all in the basic files, even if there is a machine code file. So all you really have to do is go through the basic, and if you see something like a print
Number 4.
Number 4 or
Mhm.
RAN user 100,
Mhm.
you just delete it.
Yeah.
And then you're right back to a very, very standard Timex Sinclair program.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is for the TS 2068. Now for the ZX 1000, I think he used a slightly different calling code or something like that. So I'm not quite sure
Yeah.
how to do that, because I did have a system, but I didn't use it that much. And
Yeah. And I haven't seen any discs or documentation for that format. So I don't know.
Remember, you can always just simply concatenate the tap files.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then probably if the program was wanting to work in a disk-like fashion, the difference there would be it would load by name. So as long as the data file is after the main program, it'll find it. But if it was going to write and rewrite that stuff, you would need to convert that. An easy one would be you could convert it to microdrive syntax and then just put all the files in a microdrive emulator if it were a Spectrum program. As an example. But yeah, I guess it would depend on what the program was going to do with the data.
Yeah.
If it was to be writing it back out, then you might try to do that in disk style.
Well, and with Larkin, there was a 2-character file extension convention that he recommended, and then basic programs were .b whatever. The second character didn't look right. And code was .c, but if it was a string array, it was like .c $sign or something. Yeah. It's not like you said, David, it's not difficult to decode. It's just going through and editing, finding all the instances of, rand user 100 or print number 4. And then, and editing that on the 2068 gets a little tedious after a while. I was looking into, there's a program that converts a TAP file to a basic listing, and I was just looking at that this afternoon to make life easier for that process to edit it.
That actually reminds me. Last night I talked on the phone with Ryan for about an hour, and he's been working on ZMake base and fixing some issues with it. And I was thinking maybe at some point during our meeting we could sort of have Ryan. I didn't ask you this, but if you're willing to talk about it,
Sure.
Maybe to tell us what you found, some of the issues, and what you've been able to fix so far.
Yeah.
And the other thing that kind of Ryan brought up with the microdrive emulator, it's kind of I don't know if anybody's ever thought about it or maybe even tried to do it, but is to upgrade the TS1000 ROMs to maybe get some of the 2060 or the Spectrum routines, and maybe like a twister board, so you could actually plug the interface one into a ZX81 and maybe actually use the microdrives with the ZX81. I don't think it would be that difficult, but obviously you'd have to get the routines, right? The microdrive routines out of the Spectrum ROM. And since you've got some extra ROM space in the ZX81, right? It's only an 8K ROM, but you certainly can put a 16K in there, right? There's no address, you're not going to kibosh any kind of other code, right? Because it's empty space, but you would have some place to put that extra code. Anyway, it's just
I thought the microdrive code was in the ROM that's in the interface one.
Well, the microdrive, the interface one has, a ULA inside of it. And so the code in the Spectrum ROM, sends stuff out over the bus, and then the interface one knows what to do with that, right? But you'd have to get the code, from the Spectrum, get it into the ZX81, and then you need a twister board, right? Because you couldn't plug in interface one directly into the ZX81. You'd have to, spaghetti the lines to the right places. But it's just something I was thinking. I just don't know if anybody ever thought about maybe getting the microdrives to work.
Well,
on the ZX81.
I took a look at the microdrive assembly code, and the biggest problem there is that it calls a lot of routines in the Spectrum ROM to do things like parse the command lines and things. So wouldn't be compatible at all with the 1000 unless you completely rewrote the ROM.
Right. Yeah, it definitely had to be like an addition, because it wouldn't fit in the original 8K. It'd have to be in the 8 to 16K area.
Well,
So
you also have to have certain routines like the get care and some other parsing routines at known addresses in the ROM.
Yeah.
That's all in the lower 8K, but that's the big problem.
But you know what, Carl, I think that the ZXpand does work in that way. It replaces the internal ROM with its own version, and it remaps a couple of keys to be its own commands, like its own version of a directory command. I can't remember, maybe it's list and maybe
copy, list, and I forget the other one.
Yeah, the ones that have to do with the printer.
Right.
And so that works out pretty good. Plus it's SD card based. It's really nice.
Right. I actually have one, but I've never used it.
Carl,
that's the list as well. Those are the three.
Send it to me, Carl. I'll play with it.
Yeah. I knew I was going to get to it, but it's one of those. I got
First, you have to move to Albuquerque.
Right.
I got to get another freaking box to, get around to it.
Carl,
Road trip.
are we going to see you on one of those hoarder programs, Carl?
Yeah, I figure if I, the way the Timex stuff is, if you don't get it, you may never get it. You know what I mean? The ZX Expand is a pretty popular product, so I don't see that really going anywhere. But, it's different things where, somebody comes up with it and maybe they sell it on Tindy or something like that, right? But then a year or two goes by and they've moved on and you can't get it anymore. They didn't make maybe it needs code, so that's not publicly available, or the schematics are not publicly available. So, it's kind of like a lot of things that actually were back in the day, right? You couldn't get schematics for it. You had to reverse engineer it, which was, a lot easier back then because they weren't, the boards and things weren't that complicated. And you didn't have these, PIC microcontrollers or stuff that were on the boards, right? And you couldn't extract the code from them. It's all basically TTL logic, right? So that you can figure it out. But yeah, it's just, that's why I kind of got the ZX Expand. I said, I will definitely use it because I kind of want to move everything to, all the classic machines that I have. I kind of want to get some type of solid state based memory, right, to use with them. And like the Model 100 was a big one because I don't know if you guys know this guy's Jeff Burt, right? He has the Hey Burt channel.
Yeah.
And his I don't know who he cohorts with, but they developed. He pretty much developed a thing called the backpack, right? It takes one AAA battery, it plugs into the serial port on the 100. Yep, you got one, and and you run some commands on there and it copies some code over and basically you get TDOS on there. And so it's a Tandy portable, disk drive emulator, right?
Yeah.
That's in there with the little SD card, and it'll work with, they're expanding it now, right? It was only the Model 100, I think, the 102 and the 200,
Yeah.
but now they've got it working on the Epson HX20, which I have, and some other machines, right? So I was kind of like, it's pretty cool. That's what you want.
How does it interface to the Tandy 100?
It's
The
an
serial
RS
port?
Yeah, it's a little serial
the
port.
serial port on the back of it.
There's
I wonder if it
whole
would work on the C88.
it
Because
could, it could, because it basically you have to send commands via the serial port.
Yep.
And you're right, it could work with the Z88.
But Tim, didn't somebody
Tandy
adapt?
floppy drive. The
Yeah.
Tandy floppy drive worked with the Z88.
Okay. Then if that was, did it require like a special ROM for the Z88?
No,
I wonder why.
it's been a long time since I've used it.
Yeah.
But it was all serial based, and so I think it just worked. I can't remember exactly how. Once again, it's probably been 20 plus more years.
Yeah. Well, I remember reading it.
It'd have to have some kind of software to do the interpolation, right? Because just like the Model 100, you have to load the software that comes with it, right? When you buy the drive, it comes with a floppy disk. And I think you enter some kind of code and it just tells the floppy disk to dump something that's on the floppy because you don't have any software yet, right? On the Model 100 to talk. And so you do this command and it kind of automatically dumps it. And then now you can use it. But so I'd imagine on the Z88, there had to be some kind of software somebody wrote to do that.
Yeah, but Tim's right. Somebody did adapt the Model 100, the TPDD, to work with the Z88. Yeah,
because they had two versions of it, and it was actually originally from a brother.
Sewing machine.
Not a sewing machine,
Was
but
word processor.
No,
it was a. My mom had one of those back in the day.
She really?
Some kind of
wow.
knitting. It was like a knitting machine.
Yeah.
It was an electronic knitting machine, and it would store. That's how it stored your knitting patterns and stuff like that on this drive. And so Radio Shack just kind of scooped it from Brother, right? They talked to Brother and rebadged it, and that's what really the drive is. It's a Brother floppy drive that they were using on those knitting machines.
Cool.
So looking at the ones of Google, I found there's two programs, BBC basic programs for the Z88 allow it to use the Tandy disk drive.
Oh, then
Well, the backpack might work with that then.
then it might
'cause I
work.
know-
Yeah, because
yeah.
that's the protocol it uses.
I think
Yeah.
the biggest thing is converting the port to the right size,
Oh,
because the Z8 was DB9.
9. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think Bert's got or Jeff's got those conversions because I think the Epson has a 9-pin as well. I don't think it's a 25-pin. It might be, but I can't remember.
Yeah,
But you have to get the
I
newer
used to
version of
have
the backpack.
Tandy disk drive, but I'm not too sure.
Yeah, I had one too, and I sold all my shit back in the day, and now here I am
Here we
getting it all
are.
back. here I am buying it all back. Should have just freaking kept it.
Hey,
Just
Ryan.
Well, on
think
the
of-
next show, I'd like you to show us the knitting machine going. All right.
Yeah, right.
Well,
I want a sweater or something.
Well, I did actually buy this from Bite Delight. I don't know if how do I get this
In front of your chest. There you go.
And it's that diagnostic cartridge.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
Right,
Block
for the-
got that
for
Radio
the
Shack
Zedek.
t-shirt.
Well, yeah, but it's a kit. Well, I guess you could buy it assembled, but I bought the kit. And then this is a 3D printed. I got this made somewhere. It's from Sculptio or whatever, but it's a 3D printed case that goes around it, right? That just snaps into it and provides it with more protection. So at the bottom of it's all covered up, so you don't short it out on anything. But I haven't tried this out either. I built it, but I haven't tried it yet. I got to get it on the Spectrum, and but it has its own diagnostic software in there. But I tried to get the schematics for this, and I guess they really don't have it.
Oh,
Right, you have to buy it from the guy.
Oh.
Obviously, the printed circuit board is made by one of the PCBWay or something like that. But there's a lot of people that have added to this. And his diagnostic program's on here too, right? So when you plug it in, you can tell it to do a bunch of different things because it's got a big EEPROM chip on here, right? And you can actually store programs on it, I guess, too, and boot the Spectrum with whatever program you have on here. So kind of like a cartridge, if you wanted to do it that way.
I was kind of hoping, Carl, that you were going to go down the path of, and you were going to turn it into a 2068 diagnostic.
Well, yeah. I got a
but-
twister board, right? I got
That's
a twister
true.
board, so
That's true. That's true.
it probably would work on it because it takes over. It totally takes over.
Yeah, right. That's the whole idea.
Right. So it can run its own things on the system without the ROM getting in the way.
I know Adam asked Ryan to talk about ZMake Base, and Ingo, did you have something that you wanted to chat about?
Yeah, just a little curiosity I wanted to share with everybody.
Okay, let's get Ryan. Are you ready, Ryan?
Sure.
Okay, talk to us. I'm gonna spotlight you.
Okay, well, let's see. Well, a pattern of mine lately when working on the Timex retro stuff is I'll start to do a thing and I want to modify the code. So I have it in a text file, run it through ZMake Base. And then it's not working. And so there's a quick check finds out, oh no, the tap file is not correct. And so ZMake Base it's got some sort of issue. And so then I'm off trying to find how to fix the bug in ZMake Base and then get everything all nice and pretty and submit the change. And so I'd done that some time ago when I was working on those couple of utilities for ZX81 P files and related things, and found out a lot of the ZX81 stuff was kind of sitting there with some bugs in it that I guess no one had noticed. Kind of felt like maybe no one was using the ZX81 feature of it. Um, and so this latest one was, it was actually a follow-on to a previous one I'd done, where basically there were some cases where when it comes across a number, it's, one of the things you have to do with a number is you have to then put the floating point bytes after the number in the tap file. And so there was a case where it wasn't doing it, and that was what was going on here. And basically it's just that there were the ZMake base, part of, like, for example, the ZX81 stuff not working, it seemed clear that, like, okay, not many people probably are using that.
Mhm.
And so therefore it's not getting tested well, and it gets broken and no one knows. And so the other thing is that it'll also work. Someone added things so it works with Spectrum Next source files. So it adds extra features and keywords for those. So adding a couple keywords isn't too difficult. I mean, our Tim had added that to it for the Timex keywords some time back. And so in general, that was just adding them to this array of keywords that it would look for. But then, like, there's also special keywords for some of these other things. I think there's something else it supports other than Spectrum Next. I forgot what it is now. It might be like could be like maybe some of these disk system keywords potentially, but
Right.
all these things need testing. And so what was happening in this last case was, like, it find a number, and then it goes and says, okay, do I need to add the floating point bytes into the tap file? And there's another test that says, oh yes, but if the number was preceded by a $, this is a Spectrum Next extension for an inline hexadecimal number. And also if it's a number preceded by an @, that's an inline binary number.
Yeah.
And so in that case, you don't add the floating point bytes. The Spectrum Next will just parse this. Well, of course, the number parsing got adjusted. And so it starts a number at either a plus or a minus sign, or a decimal or a number. All those could start a number. And if it was number preceded by a plus or minus, the number would start at the plus or minus sign, which would copy over, and then it would say, okay, now I need to add the floating point bytes. It would get down there and say, well, is the preceding character a $? Well, I happen to have code that it was. Probably in most cases, no one ever had code like this. And so, but the problem is that the current character was not a number, it was a minus sign.
Mhm.
Because I had an expression, code X string, code X $,
Mhm.
minus 32.
Mhm.
And so it said,
Oh,
oh, this
yeah.
is a
That's
Spectrum
legit.
Next hex. It said this is a Spectrum. The parser got fooled, thought it was a Spectrum Next hexadecimal number, and then didn't add the floating point bytes. And then the program would get there and it would do different things. It would go crazy or whatever, depending on stuff. The interesting thing I found out in trying to fix this was apparently the basic interpreter is fairly tolerant of spurious inline floating point numbers, just ignoring them if it doesn't expect one, I think.
You're talking about the ROM that's inside the Spectrum itself?
Yeah, because I think, I forget, there seemed like a case where it inserted one and shouldn't have somewhere. It might not have been for this time, but it just sort of like skipped past it. Like it just always says, hey, is there a number here? Just skip it.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
But
But
like Postel's laws, right? Be liberal in what you accept and conservative in what you send.
so it's just that, so hopefully I'm going to try to add in some better tests. There's like examples to show, because there's not great, it's not like I guess there is kind of documentation, but there's these examples. And when I added the one for the ZX81, I added the example was the thing that was broken was is that it didn't correctly treat the inline code numbers. You could say backslash, curly brace, literal character code. And so when I fixed that, I made the example basic file had a rem statement at the top with these backslash escape codes. And I made a tiny machine code program that would just spit out a certain value when you called it. And so the basic program would call that and it would print, hey, I expected this, got this, everything's okay when you converted it. So I had a test that you could run. So hopefully to add some more of those for the other things, you know, so that because what I like to do is I like have the reference binary, like the tap file that you would generate in the repository so that when you generate a new one, that one will show a difference, or you could at least compare them.
Yeah.
Some people don't like do that because they're like, I don't want binaries cluttering up my version control system. And it's like, well, okay, but it's nice to test. Otherwise, then I'd have to generate it and then go over and get a Spectrum Next emulator and load it up. And even then, it may not tell me that something's wrong.
Right.
You could always bring it to Carl's house. He has a Spectrum Next.
Probably one of the few people. I don't know who else has one. Those things are pretty rare.
You'd be surprised.
Yeah, I don't remember if I mentioned the one I did before, which was fixing the define function. Parsing was broken a little bit.
Yeah.
I forgot if I mentioned that in the last one or not.
I think you mentioned it before. By the way, what is ZMake base? What is it coded in? Is it?
It's just C.
Okay.
Okay.
A lot of these are so simple. These little utilities, they're just plain C, and they try to keep them pure C so that they'll compile on some older compilers, simple machines.
Ryan, I mean, at a certain point, it seems like the best thing to do, or a good idea, is just to add a command line switch to force it into certain modes.
Yeah, I mean, there's one for ZX81, obviously.
Yeah.
Of course, you could just automate that by, like, if you say the output file ends in .p or something like that. But I guess there's plenty of extensions. But yeah, you could certainly do that for the other ones. I think they didn't need it because it's like, well, if you see that syntax, none of the other ones use it. And so the problem is just that the code's not written perfectly. And so it can fail. And I think the real problem is that you may not have that system to really test it well.
Right.
I mean, basically, it'd come down to where I would just generate the tap files, run a hexadecimal, convert it to hex, and then just bring those up, either differencing the hex files with what I knew it should be, or just looking at that and looking in there and saying, I can see the floating point bytes are there, they're not there. And then for simple numbers, those are easy to see, right? Because it has the special mode where if it's an integer, small integer, the floating point bytes, there's 5 plus the number token, which is 14. So you start with the 14. If it's a small integer, it's going to be 14 and then 0, 0, and then 2 bytes for the integer, and then another 0. So you can, if it's a really small number, you just see the number in one of those bytes and the others are zeros.
Yeah.
So Ryan, have you submitted it then? And is it like, if I was to download it now, would it be your with your changes?
Yeah, it's just, well, so what I do is I do that and then branch on GitHub, and then I submit a pull request to the upstream repository, which is from Chris Y. That's who Tim also forked his from. So if I push them to him and he pulls it in, merges it in, then when Tim updates his, he'll get those updates too. It's just that I suppose I haven't really looked hard, but I guess there's some other places you can get that program. Also, it just depends on when he gets a chance to update the binary releases. So if you just grab those, you may not get the latest. So, and I don't know where I kind of wanted to know like where everyone else is getting these, but certainly like you might be able like on mine on Linux, I think it's in the repository, but it's a lot of times those things can be old before somebody updates them from the current stuff, so you have to download them directly and compile it. So I'm not sure when he's updated that. I guess I could have a look.
But to answer your question about where we get it, I have Tim's repository bookmarked, and that's where I've been getting it until you reminded me that I could go up to Chris's.
Yeah, so because if you get it from Tim, it'll be when Tim updates his from Chris's.
Yeah.
So let's see. Oh, I guess Chris has done a 1.8.5 release update. But his updates only have source code.
Oh,
So
and you have to build it.
It's just a zip of the source code.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the heck the Amiga OS stuff is.
It's the best OS ever.
Well, I don't know if those are binaries or what that is. I guess they are.
Let's agree to disagree on that one.
About the best OS ever?
What wasn't that BOS?
Yeah.
MS-DOS 3.3.
CPM, baby, CPM.
Well, that's something we were supposed to talk about this meeting too, possibly.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
well, Gustavo's not here,
Or
so
we could go talk about tops 10 on the deck.
talk about what?
Tops 10 or tops 20 on a deck.
Oh, tops 10 or 20.
goodness.
Okay.
Tops 20. Oh
Tops.
man.
Wait a minute, I'm dating myself, aren't I?
Mm-hmm. Well, don't worry, John. We're all dated.
Yeah,
Except
that's
Adam.
good.
Adam's preserved.
That's right. It's the air.
I think just by being here, we've dated ourselves, right?
Yes.
I think it's the gray hair.
Could be.
Well, Ingo, oh, thank you, Ryan, for talking about that. Ingo, are you ready to talk about whatever it is you want to share with us?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so let's start with a little screen share here. I guess I gotta. So I just changed computers. I just updated. So now I've got to give Zoom permission.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I should be able to. It's telling me that I gotta quit. Let's try this again.
You probably have
Okay,
to
there we
download the
go.
new.
Here we go. All right. So you guys can all see the schematic, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So
2014.
I don't know.
I'm
I've been
triggered,
building.
but yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, so I'm gonna zoom it in, but so I've been building a Z80 computer of my own for a while, and so I've got a processor board, I've got a memory board, and I made myself somewhat of a debugging display board that shows. It's got 7-segment displays for the data bus and for the address bus, and it shows everything in hexadecimal. And then I've got some bar graph LEDs that I converted to show the different control signals. So, like M1, MREC, IOREC, read, write, interrupt, all that stuff, right? And I was thinking with the breakout board that I have that I should be able to connect my backplane and this diagnostic board to the ZX81 and single step it. Because I built this whole like clock circuit, right? I can manually clock the processor, and which is one of the really neat things about the Z80, right? Is you can literally stop the clock
Yeah.
and it'll go from 0 hertz to whatever its rated clock speed is. So what I did, what I realized I had to do is I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. So what I did is, here's the clock circuit. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more so you guys can see this okay. So, you know, the crystal feeds into pin 35 of the ULA and then gets spit out again on pin 14 here. You've got this phi bar,
Right.
foo bar, that then drives the base of TR2, right? So I realized that if I wanted to clock the CPU, I'd have to pull out the TR2 transistor. So what I did is I broke out the soldering iron, I desoldered TR2, and I put in a female header instead. And then, so now I'm going to switch to my camera here. Give me just a second.
So you're going to show us this in real life now, is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So I'm going to show
Okay.
you
It's going to
guys
show us a
this
3-pin header.
I'm going to show you the whole breakout board and everything. So let me stop sharing and let me switch my camera. And okay, so let's see. Okay, so you guys are seeing this, right? And you guys can still hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
So what I've got is you can see, let's see, oh, it's not letting me change my zoom. Oh man. All right.
Zoom enhance.
I'm gonna have to move some things around here.
This isn't Blade Runner.
So I had it
Oh, I
set
only
up
just
so I
got
could
this
just
reference,
change
yeah.
the zoom on my camera. So there you go. You've got the so here's the ZX81 motherboard and my breakout board, and I've got all these jumper wires going across to my backplane here for my own kit computer. And you can see this orange wire. Hang on, let me tilt this a little bit. Might be able to see it better.
That's your clock? Your clock switch?
So this orange wire is where I am pulling the clock line down to 0 to ground, right?
Yeah.
Because the CPU has a 330 ohm pull-up resistor on it, which is the spec for the Z80. If you look at the manual, it says you got to put a 330 ohm resistor, a pull-up resistor on the clock pin. And then really, as long as you have a circuit that'll pull it low, that's how you can clock the CPU. So all I did was I took TR2 out, which I got right over here. I actually there's TR2. And so I can stick it back in there, but what do the commercials always say? Don't try this at home.
I have to say too, Ingo, that heatsink on your ULA there, that's pretty extreme.
Yeah.
But hey, good job.
It gets hot out in Eastern New York.
Some heat sink good, more heat sink better, right? So right now I've got it powered up through the ZX81 case here. So if I power it up right now, and I'm going to bring it closer because now
I think you just
know it's
dimmed the lights in
connected to a
Albuquerque.
ZX81. What's that?
I think you dimmed the lights here in Albuquerque.
Everything went
Yeah.
darker.
Throw some more food in the Mr. Fusion.
Yeah. I wonder, does it help if I? Oh, that's probably too dark, huh?
That's too dark.
Okay, so let me see if I can get this closer to the display, to the camera. I mean, so
the
right now
LEDs are kind of blowing out the exposure, but I mean you can still see it. It's just kind of.
They're bright.
Is it still too bright?
I think I could stand across the street and still read them.
You just put a frosted glass in front of it or something. But you don't need to do that now. I would just keep
Yeah.
moving forward.
I think
Yeah.
there's a federal law against using blue LEDs for anything. Or if not, there should be.
I didn't even know they made 8-segment LEDs in blue.
If he's not too
So-
close to the airport, he's okay.
So right now, this is the state of the address bus and the data bus. So I've got address bus, data bus here,
Right.
and the I have to give the Z80 3 clock pulses just to get it to put the program counter. It has to kind of like get itself started up and then put the program counter value onto the address bus. So I'm going to give it 1, 2, 3 clock pulses. You can see right now, I don't know if you guys can read that, probably not.
Yeah, we can
It's
see.
M1. So I've got M1 right now. Address is 0. And if I give it one more clock pulse, it's going to actually. So D3 is the very first instruction on the Z80 ROM, or on the ZX81 ROM, sorry.
Yeah.
And so right now, that's the out instruction. And if I clock it again, now we're reading the following byte, right, is the address, right? So we're basically saying which output port. So output port FD is where this is where we set up the non-maskable interrupt. And then so now you can see this 01 FD. It's actually doing the output right now. There you can see IO request and write. We're writing the 1. And then, okay, so now we're ready on address 2. We're starting the M1, so instruction fetch. And this is 01. So at address 2, we're reading a 01, which is load the BC register with a 2-byte value that's about to come. So address 3 is FF. This is a little endian, right? So we're actually going to set RAM top to 7F FF, but we're reading the tailing FF right now. And then on address 4, we'll have the 7F. So there's your 7F FF that we're going to load it into the BC register so that we can do our RAM check, right? And then address 5, we fetch a C3, which is a jump to.
So I'm asking a question here, if you don't mind. Are you?
No, go ahead.
Did you memorize this like off the top of your head? Or are you like referencing like?
No, so I-
No.
Next to you?
I'm seriously being triggered here. I'm having mental flashbacks.
He's got a teleprompter.
Looking at
Right.
Z80 opcode going, yep, no, that's right. Yep, oh my God. It's all flooding back in from those brain cells I thought were long dead.
You got to try harder, John.
Yeah,
Well,
I think
you
Ingo just kind of knows these because he's done this enough times and stepped through
Yeah.
the ROM. That, I mean, he doesn't know it off his top of his head.
I've got it written down. So there's the ZX81 ROM disassembly book, and I've been just I've walked through this part of the ROM several times before, testing to make sure that my circuit actually works on an actual ZX81. So I've got it. So right now I'm just manually clocking the CPU, but I've got it set up so that I've got a 555 timer on here. So if I switch it right now to adjustable, you can probably not see right now. Let me see if I can get this in camera, but you see that LED? So that's the clock.
Oh
That's
my
how
God.
fast the clock is going right now. And I've got a knob here that I can turn it up with. So I can, and it looks like it got locked up. Sometimes when I switch it over like that, I think I'm pulling the bus down a little hard. So let me reset it. But I'm gonna reset it with the with this clock going. And I'm gonna run it a little faster. So now this is the 555 timer that's now clocking the ZX81. And it's adjustable. So, you can see that I've got.
You know, you could take this whole thing and put it in a small board and have it be like a diagnostic post, be equivalent to the diagnostic post board we used to do on PCs, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so I've already got some chips selected that I'm going to build another circuit with, because what I want to do is I want to create a hardware breakpoint. So I want to be able to use dip switches to set an address and then have it assert wait on the CPU once it reaches that address. Because here's the thing, even with my clock going super, super fast, right? I want to be able to get past the RAM check and then walk through the rest of the ROM, but that'll take forever. Because, I mean, right now, if I even speed it up like crazy, oh, it looks like I locked it up again. Oh, darn it.
Those flying wires.
So I think it's because I'm not buffering. I think I'm causing the Z80 to crash on the because I'm not buffering this. I think I'm loading down the buses too hard. On my original design, I actually have my Z80 is fully buffered. I've got these buffer chips here. All my control signals, the address bus and the data bus are fully buffered. So when I plug this guy in, right, I can load it up with all kinds of stuff.
What was that board you just showed us? I'm sorry, I don't understand what that was. That was.
So this is my home built computer. This is the processor board.
I dare.
It's all hand wired.
Oh, sweet.
I dare you to plug that in right now with it powered up.
Yeah, right. Can you say bus contention?
I could say dual CPU.
I've got a RAM board here. This has got a ZIF socket for an EEPROM. This is actually an EEPROM, and then I've got a 32K static RAM chip, and then
just
got
to
this
be
other
smart,
board.
Alec. Back in the day, we called this an S100 bus system.
Yep,
That's right.
Well, you know what? Yeah, exactly. So these guys, there's this computer group. And hang on, let me power this thing down, and I'll show you this backplane I got that I based my project on.
It's Eurocard connectors.
It's Eurocard. It's a Eurocard bus.
Yeah.
And
It's the N8 VEM.
Yep.
I don't actually know what that is. Could you give me some?
It's a miniature version of the S100.
Kinda. Eurocard was a standard.
It's just those connectors are what they
A
call.
lot of projects built on these, and so here's the back of my I/O board, right, or this diagnostic board, all hand wired, all wire wrap wire, and I built this this
Where'd
box.
you get the
here.
miniature tie wraps?
Yeah, I built this box so that I can basically do instruction steps. So it'll actually use M1 and wait to literally go step through instructions. I can switch it to a 4 megahertz crystal, run the adjustable here with the 555 timer, or I can manually clock it with just this pulse step switch. And then I've got a reset switch right here to assert the reset pin on the processor. And all this is built into a case that it's all perf board, hand soldered. Yeah, this whole thing has just been a fun project. This is my I/O board. It's got 2 PIOs on it, so I love PIOs.
Are those
And then
blue
this is my
7-segment LEDs too?
Yes, they are.
God damn it!
But you know what's neat about this board right here is I'm using the PIO and my own routine to I'm basically displaying the flags register and the accumulator here. So for diagnostics, I can actually see what's happening on the flags register and on the accumulator as I'm stepping through a program with this guy.
Yeah, I think they
Ingo.
made these kind of things back in the day, like the, not Hewlett Packard, but Heathkit, right? They had
Heathkit,
the,
yeah.
they
Yeah.
had the microprocessor development kits or whatever that they use in schools.
Yeah.
And they would have a
Uh-huh.
lot of those kind of things on there where they would show you all the, the IO lines, all the address line, the data, all that kind of stuff. So it's similar to that, but I see where you're going. You're kind of just building your own.
Yeah, so I've got this Heathkit microprocessor trainer.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I got one of
It's a
those.
3400.
It's a ET3400.
I knew
Yeah.
it. Yeah, that's awesome.
It's a Motorola 6802 processor, and the
Well, that sucks.
first machine language program or machine language class I ever took had one of these, and it was at the Maritime Academy where I was doing my engineering degree. And I found one of these on eBay, and I bought it. And I thought, how cool it would be to do that with the Z80 and basically make it, for anybody that really wants to learn how an 8-bit processor works and really just like get into the guts of it. And this is my own personal challenge, right? I've always wanted to learn how a processor truly works on the hardware level and learn assembly. And so this is me doing that. But I just thought the other day, man, I bet I could single step the ZX81.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering whether or not when you change clock rate, that your rising and falling edges all of a sudden, because it changed the width, that's somehow scrambling up the Z80. And I'm wondering whether or not when you go to change it, maybe what you ought to do is just pull it down, freeze the CPU, get your new clock rate running, and then release and let it go. That would fix your lockup.
So one of the things that I found out early on, when I first started off with my 555 timer, I had the 555 output, one of the outputs tied straight to the clock input of the CPU. And what I found out was with the 555, you don't get quite an exactly 50-50 duty cycle.
Mm-hmm.
You get one, either your high or your low is going to be a little bit longer than the other. And what I found out was if I clocked it slow, certain instructions would make the processor go completely wonky. So I found out that it's not good to hold it low for too long. It doesn't seem to mind at all if I keep the clock pin pulled high for a long period of time. So what I did is I actually added a separate one-shot chip that I put RC components onto to get just like the minimal amount of a low pulse to get the CPU to register and actually clock it, but not hold it low for too long. And yeah, I think just when I was switching back and forth, I probably did something goofy there because normally, as long as it's high, that's just been my observation. If you guys know better, I would love to hear what you have to say about that.
There used to be a preferred Z80 chip to play with because it was more tolerant. Some of the mass production Z80s that came later weren't as tolerant as some of the early ones.
Okay. So like the type of MOS technology that they used, if it was NMOS or whatever. Or...
Yeah.
Well,
okay.
plus
I remember chasing some of those chips back in the 80s.
Yeah, I remember that Zilog actually put some like design certain things into the die because they didn't want people to copy it. Right. So sometimes you may be running into something like that because somebody may have copied the Z80 and they didn't copy those special things that were in there. I mean, it's part of a documentary on the Z80 stuff, but that's how they designed the die so that they had some extra things in there that didn't look like they did anything, but they actually did. And so that's how they could tell, if it was a real one, quote unquote real one, or if it was, obviously they licensed it to certain people so that was okay. They could actually make it. But, you have these other people that are going to, copy the design and just sell it as cheap as they can. and you might run into some of those kind of issues like you're seeing. I don't think it's particularly that one. Looks like you actually have a real Z80 there. Plus, you're running it on a ZX81, which should have a real Z80.
Yeah.
Maybe not from Zilog, but SGS or any number of companies that NEC, whatever ones they were using at the time. But
yeah, I think this one actually, the one in the CX81 is an NEC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the one that I have is a true Zilog. It actually
Mhm.
says Zilog on it.
Yep.
I have a question regarding the CPU. This board works with the CMOS and also the NMOS version, or just only with the CMOS version of the chip?
I haven't tried it with any other ones.
I think it would
That's a
work
good
either
question.
way because whatever supply voltage you're giving it, that's what's going to base everything off of. So I think he's running everything here obviously at 5 volts. So even if you had an NMOS or a CMOS, it's going to run at 5 volts. And
Right.
CMOS has its logic levels dependent on the VCC, right? So as long as all your logic levels are within that, which they should be, even at 5 volts, then it shouldn't make a difference.
No, the question is because if you read the specs for the C80, the original models has a minimum speed to work. It's 200 kilohertz. That's not the DC.
Yeah, Gustavo, I agree with you. I seem to remember reading somewhere that the original NMOS Z80s were a dynamic configuration, and only the CMOS versions allowed static clocking.
Right.
Interesting.
That's why I asked this. Yes, correct. Chef.
Okay.
Good point.
Good to
Good
know.
point.
Good to know.
Because
Well-
something else they know, because I know there's some like chip testers out there for like the Z80 and all the other 8-bit processors, but all they do is, especially for the Z81, they just pull the data lines low, I think, which is 00, which I believe is NOP, or maybe it's FF is NOP, right? The
Yeah.
operation.
No, it's
And
all zeros. All zeros
Right.
is a no op.
Okay.
Yep.
So they obviously pull all the data lines down, and then they just it's a tester for Z80. And you can run the clock at different clock speeds, like 2 megahertz, 4 megahertz, 8 megahertz, 12 megahertz, 60, whatever. So you can see where the CPU is going to fail at, right? And see if you actually have a good one or not, because and they have it for the other processors too, the 6800, and but they're basically NOP testers is what they call them. So
Right.
they basically, you can plug your Z80 in there, turn it on, and see if it works.
You can just watch the address bus incrementing, because
Right.
the program
That's-
counter is just going to increment, especially if you're just executing NOPs, right? So it's literally just going to, you can put some LEDs on the address bus and just watch it counting up in binary.
Exactly. That's what they have.
The very
That's what they
first
have. They have
time
the
I
LEDs
ever
on
did
there.
anything with the Z80, it was that I breadboarded it. I put a 555 timer on it. I pulled all the data lines down with pull down resistors, and basically had it run no ops, and just put some LEDs on the lowest 4 or 5 address pins, and watched it cycle up and down. And then I got a little more fancy, and I put LEDs on the read line, the write line, the IO request, the mem request, and and you could just watch it. There's this guy, Julian Illett. I probably butchered his last name. He's on YouTube, and he years ago he did a video flashing or blinking lights Z80 style, and he literally just breadboards a Z80, sticks some LEDs and some pull up and pull down resistors on a breadboard, and lets it run. And when I saw that, I was just like, okay, this is approachable. I can do this. And I went and I ordered several Z80 processors and some breadboards and started playing around. And that's how this whole Z80 computer from scratch started, from that.
You
really
do
cool.
know that all of this works on smoke, right? If you let the
Yes,
smoke
yes.
out.
Oh yeah. I'm a marine engineer by trade, or by schooling, and I work on electronics and I work on large generators. And yeah, that's That's like an industry fact, right? Everything runs on magic smoke, and if you let the magic smoke leak out, then it doesn't work anymore.
That happened
that's
here in
also-
Albuquerque yesterday. There was a big magic smoke leak out. Did you guys, Ryan, you heard about that? You know what I'm talking about?
On
The fire?
Harper or something.
Yeah, the plastic, the recycling
Yeah,
plant.
yeah.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Mhm.
And the other thing, you know, so just like I said, on this diagnostic cartridge, there's a row of red LEDs here. This is the data lines. So you can see all your data lines. There's blue LEDs, so you might like that on up top here, right? And the blue LEDs, these are all your control
Why
lines.
you guys hating on my blue LEDs?
I just gotta- so,
Have
so-
blue envy.
so it's yeah, so it's kind of similar to what you're doing, but obviously, you know, this is more set up for the spectrum. And then there's power LEDs, you know, down here, so you can tell which version, I guess, of spectrum you've plugged into, because only certain spectrums have certain voltages, right? There's 4 voltages that it'll show, you know, +5, -5, +9, and +12, but certain ones don't have those voltages, so they won't light up. But yeah, it's similar concept. But of course, this one has a switch over here, which I can't remember. It's a free running, but it has a 555 timer on here as well.
Okay.
And so there's something that for the IO lines here, you can either have the 555 timer clocking this chip in here to kind of read those, or you can just have it free running, which lets the spectrum show these. But I think there was some kind of issue that he was mentioning that's why he put the 555 timer on it, because if you have it free all the time, it may not work right, because it won't latch in or something like that. I don't know, but that's, you know, that was a added thing that they did to these, is to put the 555 timer on there so you could actually clock those control lines.
Nice. Nice.
What happened with the refresh of the memory during the steps?
Nothing. It doesn't get refreshed. He was stepping through the ROM, so it didn't matter.
Oh, well, not only that, I'm using these are all static RAMs, right? So there is no refresh. Doesn't need
Yeah,
it.
no CAS and RAS to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not on the ZX81. Spectrum's different, but yeah, and the 2068. But
I mean, if you had the 16K RAM pack plugged into the back, those are dynamic RAMs, and
Yep.
you would definitely run into some problems because you wouldn't be doing your refreshes fast enough. But in this case, all the RAM chips in this implementation are all static RAMs. So as long as they have power, they're happy.
I thought the ULA handled dealing with the refresh and not the CPU, but it's been so long.
It might be, yeah.
on the Spectrum and the 2068, yeah, the ULA does the refresh stuff, because all the CAS and RAS lines come out of the Spectrum, out of the ULA, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Still
depending on the clock mode.
Did you guys know there was a version 3 of the 16K RAM pack?
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Single board.
Yeah. Wasn't
Yeah,
that
I
foldable
plan on
board that's
doing
the
a
bundle cable?
32K internal update on mine. You know, just
Have you
pull
tried
the old
Z80A?
1K chip out.
Have you tried
Yeah,
using
I just shoved a 6116, I think is what it was, in their static RAM. 16K static RAM.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ingo, are you familiar with Steve CRC's Z80 book?
Yes.
Okay. Because
Yeah, in fact, so the instruction step circuit that
Just
I
for a quick,
have,
so I make sure you're talking about his build your own Z80 computer. Is that what you're talking about? Okay.
yeah. In fact, if you go to my blog, the About Me page, I took the cover of his book and photoshopped it onto this farm animals book that I was reading as a baby, right, sitting in my high chair, and so it looks like I'm reading how to build a Z80 computer in my infancy, right? Yeah.
It took you long
It's a
enough to
great
finish
book. It's a really good book, and his column that he ran in what was the name of that magazine now?
Circuit Seller.
both of those.
Circuit Seller. Yep, that was
Management,
his article. Yeah, he had a lot of really good stuff, and I loved how he explained everything and shared everything. It was awesome.
Question is,
Go
did he
ahead.
use blue LEDs?
Didn't know, you know.
I'm sure he didn't. I think red and yellow and green were all you had back then, right?
And they were
Yeah.
so dim, so dim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
we liked it that way.
blue LEDs came out, and you're right. Everybody started using blue LEDs, and then finally we got the white LEDs, right?
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. And then RGB LEDs, right? So now
Yeah.
you can
Make all the
PWM
colors.
them and get all kinds of neat stuff.
Since Gustavo's joined us, even though we don't have Eduardo, we can now talk about CPM.
Okay.
Well,
do we really want to? Oh, sorry.
I do. Ouch.
there was some traffic on the list about implementing CPM on the 2068, and Eduardo took up the Larkin RAM disk model and modernized it a little bit. I think I hope I'm saying that correct, and hopefully Eduardo will come on and correct me at one of our next meetings if I'm wrong. But part of the reason that he did that was in order to have a 64K worth of RAM space in the dock slot, which would then facilitate running CPM on the 2068. And then he and Gustavo have been sort of chatting a little bit back and forth on the list, because Gustavo's working on implementing a CPM. How's that for an introduction to Gustavo?
Oh, okay. Oh, this is
Good enough.
an old project. I stopped the continuity of that because I recovered the old source code except 3 files, and then I type from scratch for all listings, because I have all the source in paper. And the reason to do not finish the work is because when I try to debug the system to see if I need any modification, and also to adapt the source code with the new hardware, I need the emulator to run this part of the code, or the C BIOS. And the problem is that the emulator does not support a RAM cartridge on that. I cannot run in the real debugger. That's why I ask if this system step by step can be worked on the 2068, but it's out of the machine. I cannot use this hardware, okay? Because it works alone or with different RAM or different CPU, that's not the CPU inside the machine, okay? And actually, the system works fine, because I have a FDD3 system as a support for file system. I don't have a storage problem to the development that. The only problem is the speed, because if you need to draw the screen with letters or with text, basically, the routines that you put the letter pixel by pixel is very, very small in time. You waste many time to draw the screen, and also for the scroll is not really professional, especially if you have a CPM system, because the CPM system or programs are real professional. You have editors, you have a spreadsheet or whatever, many software compiler, or all the software is really professional and works.
Gustavo, when you say it's drawing to the screen, are you talking about you're doing an 80 column in software? Is that why it's so slow?
80 column is terrible.
Okay.
It's the worst case. 64 is best. It's better, but it's not real. Works as a terminal with the serial port communication. If you have a serial port working with interrupt, and also you can put till 38K without problem in the C80, and works very fine. The refresh of the terminal is more faster than the Timex redraw the screen. This is
So-
one of the point. The second point is the input. To run CPM, you need a full keyboard, like a PC keyboard, because it's very intensive, the control key, the shift key, the tab key, and that's why Timex create the Timex Terminal 3000, because you need a real keyboard. It's impossible to run with the small keyboard for the internal Timex machine.
Well, RPM was available for the Airco, which was
Right.
CPM-ish.
Right, correct. The CPM for the Airco works fine, boots, and also you can use, but the limit is the capacity of the drive, because it's 400K by disk. You can put up to 4 disks. You need more space to run in comfortable on the CPM.
Mhm.
I'm hard use of CPM system, and always I use a Winchester or hard drive system in the machine. The floppy only to copy files from one machine to another machine, but never works on floppy.
I think it'd be totally cool to be able to spool up my Spectrum or 2068 and then run Turbo Pascal on it. That would be awesome.
Right, correct.
I still have Turbo Pascal on both 5 1/4 and 8-inch floppies for my old CPM systems.
My lord.
Can I get a copy? That was my favorite language after learning BASIC. I had so much fun with Turbo Pascal.
Turbo Pascal, really taught me a ton about structured programming.
Yep, same here.
And then after that, I was much more comfortable branching into C, and that's where I spent the majority of my younger years in Silicon Valley, was dealing with stuff in C or x86 assembly. But had it not been for the Z80 assembly, or T Pascal, I don't think I would have learned as much as quickly as I could have. The ability to hack around with that was just phenomenal. And the cost.
Did you ever use Delphi?
I used Delphi a little bit, but I used primarily the Borland stuff that I used. I would have used Sprint on my PCs as an editor. I use TPass, I use Turbo C, and assembly. And then after that, I started moving to Microsoft C, etc. under the x86 PC environment from there. But yeah, there's so much about hardware, low level hardware, learning out of those earlier systems and hacking around on CPM, and making things work, playing around, figuring out how to hook routines and add routines in, sort of a poor man's hack of a TSR, transit state resident type of an environment. But yeah, them were good old days.
So John, where did you work in Silicon Valley?
When I originally moved out to Silicon Valley, I worked for a company called Diagsoft, and we were over in Scotts Valley, literally across the street from Borland, just as you came down Highway 17. And then I actually went and worked at Borland for a little bit as a code geek. And from there, I went over to Milpitas and worked for a company called NetFrame, which was a Carl Amdahl company. And what we did there, what Amdahl had done there, was to take the 386 processor and marry it to an IBM 360 bus tag environment to get better performance out of the 386 and then subsequently the 486, and turn that into being a fairly high-end Novell NetWare based LAN server. And then after that, I went to 3Com, was a 3Com for a while, and then went to Synoptics, just before we got bought by Wellfleet. Oh, excuse me, the merger. We were merged. Yeah, it was not an acquisition, it was a merger. Yeah, whatever. Wellfleet bought us. Billerica owned us on it from the East Coast, and we became Bay Networks. and then after that, I exited that and started a long and dubious career in entrepreneurship, running several ISPs, or going to work for ICANN, running a root name server.
Wow.
Well, the Comco was also in Scotts Valley. They did stuff for the QL.
Yeah.
I had to, so they're my local support when I was running the Metacomco Pascal. And I contacted them and said, hey, I found this bug. They go, oh, I think we got a QL around here we can fire up and see if it works. I think I surprised them that someone in the US was using their Pascal.
One of the funnest projects I ever worked on in Silicon Valley is where I was working for a small consulting company, and we got hired, put a team together to port this new operating system called Windows NT over to the MIPS 4000 processor. And so my job, since I had a lot of low-level hardware and assembly language experience, my job was basically to take the HAL, the hardware abstraction layer that was in the early versions of NT, and get that coded and working with the MIPS 4000 processor, so that everything above it,
That's
all the
R4K.
C-based stuff, would just sort of mostly drop in and run. And it was pretty cool to do that.
That is crazy. That's crazy, John.
Life is crazy.
And still, your favorite computer is what, the 80 or the 81?
We're
gonna judge you.
I know, and I
You only
don't
get two
care.
choices.
It's a 50-50 chance I'm gonna be loved or hated. I get it. No, I would say that the ZX80 was the first computer I got to build as a kit. And I loved that. And you can see it over my shoulder right here. This is a picture. Here, let's do this.
You got to pick up Paul's technique. Oh, wow.
That was a picture taken in 1985 of all of my Sinclair toys.
Oh my gosh.
I still own all of that.
Oh my gosh.
Good, you've got the QL.
Yep. And there's even a Sinclair calculator there.
Yeah.
I bought the watch.
I noticed that.
Yeah, I got
that's cool.
Wait, my folks have the watch, that black watch with that sort of purplish red LED displays on it.
Yep.
And I know in the garage at my dad's house somewhere is actually a little mini Sinclair television.
Flat screen or the micro one? I think it was probably the micro one.
This is the little micro one. It's got the CR2 tube. It goes up against the mirror, and then it projects up, if I remember right, out to a little display.
Use Polaroid film battery packs.
That's the flat screen. I've got that running around. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the original Microvision was Terry Bradshaw advertised it, and it was long, and the CRT ran the length of the thing. Basically, it was like rectangular, and the TV's on one square on one side, whereas the flat screen is larger. And again, it wasn't a mirror. It actually used wires to electronically reroute the electrons would come. If you're watching it like this, it would come along this way, then bend and hit the fluorescent red part.
Yeah.
Yeah, the phosphorus.
Hey Tim,
And
you gotta pan down so we
the
can.
side that was lit up.
Tim, either
I
pan
was just
down or
gonna
stand
say,
up
I
so we
wanted
can
to
see your
see
shirt.
Tim's shirt too.
Oh.
Yeah,
Does it say? Is that a Z80 shirt?
nice.
Just got it.
Where did you?
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
So are you saying that your date code is 8442?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Very nice.
Tim came out of the fab on the 42nd week of 1984.
That's right. That's right.
Technically, that's a pretty old Z80 then, because those, I think it came out what 70, 77, 78.
Yeah.
Of course, not a Z80A, but
right.
Yeah.
I think those came out in maybe 80, but still.
Yeah, but
Uh,
I think it
I
probably
have a
dropped
que-
it
I
out of
have a
the.
question that you have a QL machine. The QL machine has a LAN port on the back.
Yes.
No. It has
Okay.
I thought it had
a
the
ROM
Sinclair.
extension port on the back.
Didn't it have the
It
little
has
3.5 millimeter or whatever it was, 2.5 millimeter jack that was the Sinclair
Yes.
LAN? I mean, it's not like an Ethernet or anything.
No, correct.
No, so on the
My-
back of the QL, you had power RGB, serial port A, serial port B, 2 network ports, the ROM port, and then around the side was the never ever used microdrive expansion port.
No, my question
You
is
actually on the side you actually had a bus, so you could add floppy drive, memory, whatever on the expansion bus.
oh. No, my question is directioned. It's you have it's possible to interrupt the QL with the interface one of the spectrum if you
Yes.
use the LAN and works.
You
I
couldn't
never
hook
did
up
it, but yes, that was possible. There was a
putting
LAN in
interface
and a
one
LAN out.
onto.
Pardon?
Well, no,
You mean
because
putting
because the interface
onto
one,
the QL?
yeah, the interface one had the same thing. It had
Right.
a Sinclair network port.
Oh yeah.
And
Oh,
and I think what Gustavo's asking is if they could talk to each other over that
Yes,
same
correct.
network.
Possibly, I'm not too sure. Never tried it. I only use other QLs, but it might be again. It's the same hardware, and I believe probably the same routines. But I don't know if the upper level of the stack would allow it to or not.
It's just all simple to interchange a single letter and say hi or hello world. Okay. The idea is because I asked to the CX museum to get the ROM to see how it works or how the communication, the protocol or whatever, but I never received till moment the response.
well, that's a different thing, Gustavo. That's
yes.
you're talking about Tenet, which is not the same
Right.
thing that is the interface one and the QL does.
It's strange because if you see the hardware for the serial port sell in Timex Portugal, it's the same circuit that the interface one serial is made by software.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
But it's
the
not
network
but
was
Tenet
not
is
serial
not
based. The
Huh.
QL and ZX Spectrum network were actually almost, I'm saying, like an RCA cable based, or like a headphone jack kind of based.
Headphone jack, 2-wire.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I was just seeing if I could grab a interface one real quick off my shelf here in the office, but it must be out in the other storage bins.
So we're down to a few minutes left, and I just want to say our next meeting is Sunday the 20th at 2 in the afternoon. So for folks out on the West Coast like Tim, that just bumps right up into lunchtime for you.
11 a.m. to 1 a.m.
Yeah.
basically. So yeah, right at my lunchtime.
Yeah.
Sorry, just only to see the correct time. Now here in Argentina is 4 minutes to 0.
Midnight.
What is it? The local time there is 10?
It's almost 11 o'clock on the East Coast.
11.
And almost
Yeah.
9 o'clock Albuquerque.
Yeah.
8 p.m. my time, California time.
Yeah.
8 p.m.
Pacific
Okay.
time, the only time.
Okay.
The
What?
only
I'm sorry.
time?
Did you say cannoli time?
Buenos Aires?
Only time.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
That was
I've got another box that I'd like to get rid of. It's full of 5 1/4 floppies.
Yeah.
It's not 5, it's not 10, it's not 100. It's more than 100.
Okay.
What's on it?
You have any idea what the format is, Paul?
Blank.
You mean they're just blank floppies?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
I'll take some.
There you go.
You want to be a floppy baron? I'll do it cheap.
He needs room in his house for something else.
That's true.
David, do we? I know that
I'll send you by email.
Yeah, take that offline, guys.
Steve North is going to be speaking at the one in September, but is there a speaker for next time?
No, not yet.
Are you looking for someone?
Probably. I'm sorry.
Are you looking for someone, or?
Sure. If anybody wants to dig up, not quite literally, but
Adam,
anybody
you
wants
want to
to
try to reach out to Dan Tanberg?
Yeah,
I
let's
already
see.
did. He hasn't gotten back with me, so
Okay.
yeah.
Why don't
We
you
can
just
try
go over to
again,
his
it's no
house
big
and
deal.
knock on his door?
I could be there in 15 minutes, I suppose.
Well, and Ingo said that he had reached out to somebody from the Albany, New York capital area user group, and he was pretty excited that Ingo reached out to him, and that crazy people like us were still around. So
Like a bad penny.
right.
The other thing too, John, you might know, what about Ray Kingsley? Do you know if Ray Kingsley passed or?
I don't know.
Okay. Because I mean, I think we
that
tried to
name
look
in
him up, but
forever.
Right.
well, somebody mentioned Hot Z earlier, and Hot
Yeah.
Z, he worked on that thing for years. So yes, it was very, very advanced in its capabilities, right? I mean, I know Inno's talking about stepping through and setting breakpoints, but you could do that kind of stuff in Hot Z and let the machine code run, and it would stop at whatever address you wanted it to, right? But
Yeah.
and obviously I used that to develop my diagnostic cartridge. I was using the cartridge version, right? The AROS version.
Yeah.
And then of course, was talking about,
completely forgot about that.
yeah. I don't know if Ray's has left us or if he's maybe still around and just decided to put all this Sinclair Timex crap behind him.
I haven't seen a trace of him being around for a long time.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if he was connected.
Right.
Yeah, because I don't really have any address for him. Everything is all PO boxes, right? So it's kind of hard to track
he
somebody
sheltered
down
that
through PO
part.
boxes. Yeah, I'm sure Art Colgate, the guy I worked with, that I developed all that cartridge stuff for, because him and Ray were back and forth. All they were talking all the time because Ray wrote the software for his 3-axis milling machine. That was Ray's contribution to that as well. So, but they were talking all the time. And so I just don't, I kind of wonder what happened with Ray.
Yeah.
I want to ask a question of the Albuquerque group here. Are y'all into getting together this weekend at my place?
I don't know. Where's your
Yeah.
place?
I'll be
Right down the
there.
street from you. So I live on the same intersection as you and Ryan do. So basically, Carl lives far away. He lives by Intel.
Yeah, I'm in Rio Rancho, but yeah, this weekend's probably good for me.
We'll forgive you for that one, Carl.
Well, I moved up here because I worked at Intel at the time, but now I work at HP, which is even further north up there.
Yeah,
So
that's
it's
real
even
far.
better. Yeah, it's better for me to be where I'm at.
Yeah.
But anyway,
we'll talk about that offline. But I'd like to do that for us to meet up and share.
And
some
Ryan,
stuff.
just really quick, I know you said you got a couple more 1,000s. You said, like from where? So I don't know. Like I said, I'm still working on your third one. I haven't really done much with it here lately, to be honest. But I think it has that weak ULA video output, right? So I don't know if we might be able to swap that out or because I kind of want to
refurbing them.
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to modernize them, get them, put their internal RAM and get them composite video out. That's kind of where this came in because the composite video mods really don't work with his because the video output on the ULA is so low. So the output's so low.
Stewart has ULAs.
Yeah. I mean, I have some of the ones I bought from the guy in New Zealand. The V81s and the VLA82s. I think I bought 4 different things from him, and it works great with that chip in there. So that's why I'm thinking that it's just I haven't put on the scope, and I know we kind of did this when we were over at Adams last time doing his. We actually put the video output of the ULA on the scope, and you can see
that was cool.
Yeah, how strong some of them were, and I'm assuming the one that I have is probably pretty damn weak.
Adam, have Carl take a look at that that Zebra graphics interface and see if it's getting power and stuff.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, maybe I should show you. I put that handy. So I got it. Let's see. David sent me a little care package. So this is, what is it called? The TAD Painter digitizer?
That's the device with which you are supposed to record your own samples.
Right. I can talk into it like this.
Yep.
It's amazing. And then
It's horrific.
this is the Qualipad, which at the interface, this is it plugs into the back of the 2068 like this.
Oh,
And
nice.
the interface is that, I mean, this Qualipad, is this for the TRS-80 color Coco? Is that
I
what
think
it
it's the
is?
Cocoa Pad, yeah.
Coco.
Yeah, version.
Anyway, and then I've got all the software, which I don't need, but I've got like, if you want to buy a cassette, I'm set.
The other
But
thing
it's all
too,
been
Adam, you were
archived already.
mentioning that Jeff sent you his FPGA thing and
Yeah.
sent you a programmer, right? So did you?
Yeah, but I can't, in fact, Jeff, are you still here? Yeah. I asked you to send me like the update, but I don't have it yet. So,
Okay, I thought I did send you the update. I'll make sure you get it.
yeah, I don't have the software.
Because I guess you were kind of looking for help getting that updated, right? Or
Well,
did
if
you
I have the
update it?
software, I think I can figure it
Okay.
out, but
Okay.
we could all do it, at my place in this very room,
The-
which
Yeah.
doesn't have a
installing
green
that-
screen normally. So,
Yeah, installing that programmer software is a bit of a pain.
is it? All
because of
right. Well,
the,
then
you know,
definitely I'll get some help.
The
That'd be cool.
steps. Yeah.
Cool.
All right. Well, once
I
again,
just sent an email. Sorry, real quick. I just sent an email to Dan Tanberg at his UNM address that I've last used, and I'm also asking him if he knows whatever happened with Ray Kingsley.
Mhm.
Okay.
poor Dan's getting abused from all angles.
Oh well.
Well, it's his fault. He lives in Albuquerque.
Uh-huh. That's right. You guys are gonna press gang him into becoming an active member.
This is a tough room because you guys gave me a hard time about my blue LEDs. So.
It's all in love, man. It's all in love.
I sure hope nothing happens in Albuquerque this weekend. We're going to be losing a lot of people.
Oh my God. It's a critical mass. No hot dog.
All right, guys,
incidents.
it was good to hang out.
Yeah. Thank you guys.
Yeah,
Cheers.
and I don't know if it matters too much, but I won't be available for the next 2 meetings, so I'll see you guys in 3 meetings.
3
Where
meetings.
you going?
Okay.
I will be in Florida and I will be in Nashville both those times. So
Oh, well, I suppose that's
have a
allowable.
good trip.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I
Safe
won't-
travels.
I won't make anything in September. I'll be in Prague.
Nice.
for-
Nice. Cool.
All right, bye guys.
All right. Bye,
Before we
gentlemen.
go,
Have a good one, guys.
Oh, wait, Joe,
what?
real quick.
Yeah.
real,
What?
real quick, I just want to do a call out for that card that you sent me, the Fizz card.
Yeah.
If anybody has one, I need a copy of the ROM. This ROM is dead.
So you said that 2 of the pins had developed a floating state or something?
Yeah. When I put it on the programmer to pull the ROM image,
Uh-huh.
before I even tried to power it up, I just wanted to pull the ROM image. It showed 2 bad pins.
Oh.
So I'm looking for somebody that might have one floating around still. So this was
And what is that? I'm not quite understanding what that is.
It's a floppy disk driver card for the ZX81 or
1000.
1000, right? And yeah, it came under several different names. I think it was sold by CompuPro. Was that right?
CompUSA. Yeah.
CompuUSA. Yeah, thank you.
Not.
And it's
yeah.
this card, and I haven't really found much online about it except for advertising. So
Yeah.
Have you tried? You probably have, but cleaning the pins because sometimes they get corroded, and they don't make a contact in the ZIF socket, and that's why maybe they're showing they're bad. But I'm sure you probably did that.
Yeah, I cleaned them with a fiberglass pen and deoxed it, and it didn't do any different. But I've had other rounds do the exact same thing. So the linkage on the inside that goes from the chip to the actual pin, they corrode over time internally.
Yeah.
And then they're gone. So
That's just micro wire.
Well, I heard that if you get a microscope, you can actually look at the die and you can get the 1s and 0s off that way.
Right.
Well,
I thought you were going to say
Tough
send it to
room,
you,
man. I said
and
it.
you
I
can
said
do
it
that
earlier.
for
It's a
us.
tough room.
As long as you use blue LED lights.
Yeah.
The die.
Yeah, that'll erase it. Right.
Joe, there was I saw I don't know where I saw this, but I saw a show about testing, about testing chips as they're coming out. And they got this big round circular thing with all these little fingers coming in that ended at fine test points for for an actual IC on the die, right? And so when you mentioned that, I was like, well, why don't you just build one of those and pop the top off?
Well, yeah, you need a clean room.
Fuck that.
And actually, I did research that. There is a place in Ireland that will do that. About $300 for that chip, plus shipping to and from. So there used to be a place in the U.S., but they don't do that anymore, apparently.
Well, I'm actually surprised to hear that there's a place that will do that. Wow.
Oh yeah, they'll delit it, and actually, they have this great big machine with a bunch of pins that they can push it right down onto the die of the chip and read it. But yeah, it's a $300 option, and I really didn't want to spend that much money on getting that data. So
There's no ROM image of this thing floating around anywhere?
No.
The original company is Macronics out of the UK, and the original device is called the Fizz, F-I-Z, with periods in between them. And I think if anybody knows about it, it's the guys at Sinclair ZX World, the web farm. Yeah, they're really, they know a lot. And the next step would be the guys in Germany, CX81 team or something like that. I don't remember exactly what they're called.
The other thing you might try to do is you can, read what's there, but like ground the 2 pins that are bad. So yeah, they're all going to be zeros there, right? But at least you can dump the majority of what's in there, and then maybe you can change the pins to 1, 1 0, and the other 0 1, and then both 1 1. So you'll get 4 different sets of reads, but it's obviously going to be Z80 code,
right?
Probably, right? So you can kind of maybe disassemble it and look and see what makes sense. And so, of course, that's not going to be, it's going to be very specific. I don't know how much code is in that little EEPROM. Maybe it's not too much that you could actually go through it by hand and fix it.
Probably 2K.
Yeah, you could go through it by hand and fix it, maybe over a couple of weekends or whatever. But, make opcodes that might make sense for whatever you're reading. You know what I'm saying? That way, at least you could get something instead of just nothing. At least you'll get something. You could dump something off of it.
Yeah, if you could get that to work, Joe, and put it to the group, we could, poke at it to, poke at it with you, because we have the documentation, so we at least know some of the addresses, right? And the entry points.
Oh, you have the documentation out there?
There's on the web. Yeah, on the website on archive as well is what passes for the documentation on how to use it in BASIC.
Oh, okay, because all I saw were the advertisements. I didn't see that. I'll go look for it again.
Yeah, and if you don't find it, let me know and I'll go dig it up.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. All right, with that.
Awesome meeting. Thanks, guys.
It's been fun.
Good one.
Cheers.